Oh, I appreciate it. Everybody ready? Yeah. You ready?
I had a vote, I'd be like, fire department.
All right, thanks for coming out tonight, everybody. We're going to start the meeting with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with the approval of the agenda. Any corrections, additions? Paul? Dan, you had two already. Anything in addition to that?
No, just those two items, sir.
Okay. Brian? No? Okay, so we're going to move the consent agenda, item 2F, the sewer forgiveness. We're going to move that to new business number 2. And the fence permit for the 505 4th Avenue Northwest to committee report number 2, planning and zoning. Other than that, Tim, did you have anything? Okay. With that, entertain approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to the consent agenda, minus the 2 items that were removed. Any questions, comments for administration? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mel. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to visitors of council. First up, Eric Johnson, Fair Board.
Good evening, everyone. Eric Tronson, 1501 12th Street Northwest, Casson, Minnesota. Here representing the Dodge County Ag and Mechanical Society, or Fair Board, as we're known. And this is more just an informational and Q&A for all of you, based on the fact that going forward, the Fair Board had a unanimous vote to act on the limited powers granted to us under Minnesota Statute 38.01 to exercise our jurisdiction to use the buildings for the 2 weeks during the fair as it pertains to the ice arena. And so, going forward, we're going to require that the ice comes out each year so that we can plan effectively for using that building going forward. And this year, it was a success to the degree that it could be with limited notice to people and so forth, but we've had a number of things come up as far as possible events that are asking if they can even use the ice arena the week ahead of or the week after the fair. And in conversations with Howie, he thought that one of the events is a U.S. strongman competition, and the ice arena would work really, really well for that. It would have enough square footage and so forth, and so that may be a possibility for next year, the week ahead of the Dodge County Fair. And so that would be another conversation about what the city would need for that space and during that week ahead of time, ahead of the fair. But any questions, observations, anything at this point regarding the ice coming out each year going forward?
Yeah, I do. So if it's going to come out, which you have every right to do, I don't know why we should have to pay to take it out and put it back in.
How do you mean pay to take it out and pay?
Agreement we have every year, what, $8,000?
No, you don't have to pay anything. That contract was never signed on your side for any dollars whatsoever. So the Fair Board it's not about money.
That's not going to come back again next year?
No.
Contract, okay.
No.
This year, didn't we?
No.
They brought it, but we didn't do it. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't signed on your side.
Right.
And we had already collectively kind of made the decision that the ice was coming out this year. And after that, and thinking, well, wait a minute, how do you plan for the use of the arena if there's not conviction on both parties' side that the ice will come out each year? How do you plan for vendors coming in and utilization of the space if the ice might go back in or the ice might come out, that type of thing. So we're just looking to grow the fair, and we were able to utilize other buildings that we had used for the limited space we had for commercial vendors. And so this year, yeah, we you had a real good response, and it was a great fair and so forth, but there is no,
So that
no
will just won't come back to
expectation.
the next council, is what I'm...
No,
Okay.
not at all, sir.
Thank you.
No, not at all. Any other questions, or can I make a request that at some point in the not-too-distant future, within the next 2 months potentially, that we have a discussion with whoever the parties may be that need to make that decision, to put together an assessment of what you would need to have that ice out for the week ahead of the fair, so that I can pass that on to the gentleman that inquired about using the building for a strongman competition.
Yeah, Ice Arena meeting, when do we meet next? I don't know.
Usually in September.
Holly usually puts them here September, October, after the ice hockey season gets going. And
Sure.
we start talking budget.
Yep.
So, can we send Holly a message and see?
Yeah,
if we
that sounds
can-
good.
And we'll make sure you know when that is.
Great. And we're more than willing to also provide volunteers, and I understand it wasn't needed this year, and all the boards weren't taken out around the corner, which I think we can probably work with without any difficulty going forward.
Sure.
I don't, after seeing it, and it's a lot of work to take the extra glass out and the extra boards out that haven't been out for 26 years or whatever, and so we're okay with leaving that corner in, and but I had 4 volunteers that were ready to go. Fortunately, we weren't needed, but the help is there. We're willing to help to take that out and put the ice back in. In fact, I think they're making ice right now as we speak.
Yes, they are, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can get you on with the Ice Arena meeting, and we'll touch base then.
All right. No other questions?
Not from me, anybody else?
No. Great. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
sir. Yep,
Appreciate
have a
it.
good night. Number 2, Pat Barker.
Good evening, everyone. I also have Jim Finn with me. First of all, I'd like to thank City Casson, the council, for 23 years of supporting the Big Iron Classic. You've been great to us. We appreciate everything that's ever been done. We just have a few things we'd like to talk about. One being the golf cart policy. I understand there's an ordinance in town that there need to be a permit, certain amenities on the cart itself, lights, swimming vehicle, all that stuff. We'd like to look at maybe doing some kind of a special permit for that weekend, and then waiving what needs to be on the carts. And the reason I ask that is, all of our carts that come, they're all rentals. They come from minors, they don't have all that stuff. It's hard for the people to get those, to get them on the carts. Another thing we'd look at, if we could close Fifth Avenue from 10th Street to 11th Street, just that block, and then when the carts cross that road there, if maybe they wouldn't have to have a permit because they're just going from the campground to the fairgrounds. And only the ones that are gonna go uptown would have to have a permit.
Sorry, I'm just making notes.
Yep, no problem. Do you have anything else?
Okay. Hey, anything else?
I guess I just, in light of all this, a lot of people have made remarks, we got railroaded last year, what was it, 3 weeks before the event into this whole deal? And it's gonna kill your beer sales uptown, it's gonna kill sales to Hy-Vee. Just throwing that out there, food for thought.
We want the businesses to be patronized as much as they
Right.
can, we're just trying to make it easy on everybody.
Sure. Okay. Is it same weekend this year?
Yeah,
That's
same
no
weekend.
change, okay. Okay. Any comments?
Well, I mean, we can certainly take a look at it. Please.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely take a look at it with the police chief. We just gotta be careful with the ordinance that we're not
Yep.
this and that and pieces parceling it out, so, I mean, it's a great event to have in town. Closing the street,
There's,
I don't know why we couldn't do that.
and there's nobody that lives on that stretch.
Yeah.
They just closed it for the fair.
Yeah, as long as we let everybody know ahead of time and
Last year we
school.
couldn't because of 57.
Yeah.
Is it, how close is it to the middle school parking lot and the elementary parking lot? Because that's all parking designated for the school dance team. they wanna make sure people can get in there.
And that's another reason why we wanna do that, 'cause then it kinda directs them
Right.
to that area.
10th would stay open going to Houston's,
Yeah.
so just between there and 11th to the south.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so the parking lot's still accessible from both,
Yeah.
all sides.
I'm just making sure.
Yep, no.
It's on the backside of the track there, from 10th Street, then it's then it's our campground, then it's 11th, so just
Okay.
that block.
Okay,
We've done it in the past, and it seems to work okay. I just figured if we could do that, then maybe the carts just wouldn't have to have that permit.
sure.
Just one last thing.
They're not really going on the street.
No, they're not going on, and if they need to go uptown, then they need to have the special permit or whatever we decide.
Sure, okay. I don't have anything else. You guys, anybody else got any comments? I mean, I think we should be able to work with staff for the road closure for sure.
Yeah, we gotta,
The special event with the police chief as far as special event licensing for carts and see if that gets us in trouble with our insurance company. I have no problem looking at it.
we got,
All of ours that do come on the grounds do have to provide insurance to us too.
Okay.
So even if they rent one, they have to provide insurance.
they gotta be a little more careful. A lot of times they've been going on the cart paths along there
Mhm.
while people have been walking. Me and my family as one almost got ran over again last year, so.
Yep.
And, you know, that's part of the reason people get upset with the cart path,
Yep.
is they're going down where they're not supposed to.
I know we did close off part of that cart path, or the walking path last.
Oh, yeah, that little stretch
Just
by the fairgrounds,
So
but
they
I'm
could jump
talking,
and go in, but yeah, I know.
I'm talking right by
Yep.
the middle school parking lot.
Yep.
They were going at a pretty fast pace, and,
Yeah, and we could, you know, work on some more signage, for sure.
you know, it's just reminders of those, 'cause some guys,
And you can hand them a piece of paper and they can read it all day long, and
well, right,
they're not gonna do what they do, so.
you know, it
Yeah, no,
it
we-
reflects on you guys is what I, you know, and
100%.
we try to work with everybody, so.
Yep, appreciate that.
And I think overall, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of complaints that I hear. I mean, I get it.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna have them.
But
If you get a lot of people in town, you're gonna have something, it's life.
I think overall, we're pretty lucky, let's just
Hope to
put it
keep
that
it in a
way.
minimum.
Yeah, no, I agree, I just, you know, people forget, they remember the bad before they remember the good, and, you know,
100%, yeah.
we just like to,
Okay, so we'll kick this to staff.
Yeah.
You guys can get all that, you know, you have contact information for you guys? Could you
Yeah,
make sure Tim has that?
I know Pat
Yeah.
emailed me,
Okay.
I know that Josh is on those emails,
Yep.
so I think.
And you guys will be getting the email for the parade here next
Sure.
couple days, so.
Okay. Perfect. We can take care of all that one time, but, no, thanks for coming to town again. It's great to have
Thanks for having
the
us.
event in town, and, look forward to having you for the years to come, too. So let's see if we can work something out as things change, so.
Perfect.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Yep.
thank you.
Okay, number 3, the MOA agreement. Who do we have to present?
Sheriff Rose and Matt Moss from Dodge County here. This MOA has to do with the new CAD RMS system they want to use. We've used Dodge County for CAD and RMS for a long time. I think it was 2011 we started using them for RMS. Before that, we were always using CAD. It's become integral for our officers to use, so it's important that we keep on using this. There are some increased costs coming. They're looking to go to a new system. It's probably going to about double our costs is what I'm estimating. Right now, we're paying about $4,000. It's going to go to $8,000 next year, and then about $10,000 by in 2030. We'll be able to absorb some costs through another program that we use right now for our digital evidence. We're paying about $3,600 a year for that. So with this new system, hopefully we can use the RMS system the way it's supposed to store all that evidence. So I wanted you guys to be able to see this agreement before we signed off on it, and I asked them to answer any questions you guys have about it.
I can kind of explain a little, if I may. I'm Scott. With the CAD system, we've used the same CIS system or records management system for it's been 25 years. We were the first ones in Minnesota to get this system. Unfortunately, they don't have 25 years worth of improvements on it. It's a very antiquated system now. And we've been doing some reviews on our different departments with our department heads and finding out how inefficient the system is. Long story short, the system is, the existing system has 3 different modules: for records, for dispatch, for patrol, and they don't talk to each other. So our records management people are doing duplicating and triplicating work to make sure that when those files eventually go to the courts, it's got all the information on it, any information that was added. It's a very antiquated system. So we started looking for new record management software, or the new systems that are out there. This one is a software-based system. The one that we're going to is a web-based system. So it makes it much easier from a software and equipment standpoint. For the city, it will also provide updates for, or live updates for crime data. You can go to your map online, would be on our website, or you can put it on the city's website. You can look at crime stats, you can look at road closures, you can incorporate all that into your social media to provide more information for your citizens. When we started looking at dispatch, we started looking at costs. So when we started the CAD system, when we started the computers in the cars back in 2005, other than the hardware, we didn't charge anything for software. And we hadn't charged anything for software up until 2017 was the increase. And 2017 is when we started charging for that software, because our costs keep going up. We haven't done an increase in expense for the PDs since 2017. With this system's different because our cost is based on users, not based on computers. So it's based on how many users log into the system because it's web-based. So the cost is different for us, but the advantages are huge for staff. They'll be able to access the system from their phones even, from that standpoint. The records management system, everything stays right there for the PD officers. And as far as the increase in cost, we're trying to do everything we can to keep our costs down for the PDs, for West Concord PD and Casson PD. In other agencies and other areas, a lot of people are talking about consolidation, which is something that we're not interested in doing. We've never been interested in doing because we think we lose that local flavor, that local presence of people who know our dispatchers knowing your citizens and knowing people that call. And with those consolidated dispatch centers, they split up those costs based on population and based on call. So for example, in our dispatch center, 1/3 of all of our work in dispatch is Casson calls. So from an expense standpoint, it's something we need to recoup some of those costs from the standpoint of users. With 1/3 of the work in dispatch being done for Casson PD calls, in records, we also did an audit, and we spend about 20 hours a week on Casson cases in our records department. So we're not looking at recouping any of that. I put together some numbers. For example, our HR numbers for dispatch this last year was $1,092,000. And 1/3 of that is working on Casson calls. We're not interested in recouping that. We're interested in whoever wants to come on board with us with this new system, we need to pass through those, at least those user costs to them. The option for the police department and for the city is if you opt that you don't want to be on this new system, you can certainly buy into CIS or your own system here. But because our 911 phone system and our dispatch system is now completely integrated, and especially will be with ProPhoenix, we won't be doing your dispatching. We're only going to be dispatching people who are on our system because that's where we have our records management. And we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose you guys on the system because I think it's important from an officer safety standpoint that we're all communicating. But there's just some costs that we need to share. So we went with that per user basis, and we tried to make it as reasonable as possible, to try and get everybody on board. So we're looking for an MOA signature because we've got our budgets due by the end of the month, and I've got to get my planning done for next year, just like you guys. So
just one point, though.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the MOA.
Yep.
I get the whole system and all that, but,
Yep.
We're 1/3 of your dispatch calls, but in fairness, we're 1/3 of the county's population.
Yep.
So that's not out of line.
No.
It's not like we're absorbing more resources You know, we pay county taxes as well, but we have our own police department.
Yep,
We don't get as much county coverage as the dedicated communities that don't.
they're paying for it though.
Right.
Contract with us.
At a 1970.
So the slack that I get, the feedback that I get from other cities is, well, a third of your dispatch calls are Casson, so we're paying for that too. You know, so there's some equity there from the standpoint, everybody's paying property taxes, everybody's paying county
Right.
taxes.
Yep. That was just my point, was it?
I know, I get it. I totally
We're
get
a third of the population,
Yeah.
it stands to reason that
Yeah.
we're a third of the calls,
Right.
you know, or whatever.
Right.
So, but as far as the MOA, that's separate, but.
You know, the last thing we wanna do is, or do we have, at least with my administration, I have no interest in wanting to share costs on, because a third of our dispatch costs would be $360,000 a year.
Right. Yep.
And nobody, we don't wanna do that.
Right.
We just need to cover.
That's a whole different conversation, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up.
Hey, way to go.
No, it's okay.
I'm
We
just-
spend a lot of money to support, the PDs outside of what we're statutorily required to do.
Correct.
And I wanna keep doing that.
Yeah,
But I have to make our other constituents
Yep.
happy too.
Do you have the MOA here?
Scott, maybe point out, like, that the E911 funds are paying for a substantial amount upfront, is that correct?
Here.
For some of the-
Over years it will, yeah. E911, Casson E911 funds are about $70,000 a year.
Unregulated, yeah, it's not something we typically vote on tonight.
I got a question here about this MOA.
Yeah.
You got a table in here, 2025 to 2029, increasing cost per year, that's fine, and then a total. And it looks like the total's based upon 11 users. If our police force changes the number of users we need, I assume we would just pay an adjusted price if we have more or less users?
It depends on, for us, just from an accounting standpoint, you know, if you start the year at 10, and how did we talk about that for finance?
So if it changes mid-year, if you add staff or you have staff that leaves, the cost for that year would not increase or decrease, but then the next year, if you've now upped your staff from 11 to 12, and that's the plan, we're gonna have 12 going forward, then yes, there'd be an adjusted rate for that year for the next year.
Okay, so we're not locked into the 11 that it says here in this document? Okay,
Just for a current year.
that's where we're currently at,
Right.
okay. Understand, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Does council feel they have enough information to make a decision tonight? Because this is the first time I've seen it, so I haven't had a chance to
Yep.
read through it. And you need it by the end of August?
I need it by the end of July.
That's like next week.
Yeah.
And
no.
My budgets are due August.
No.
Because you only meet monthly, right, in the summer?
Just these 3 months, yeah.
My
Yeah.
budgets are due August, the
Yep.
first week of August, end of, the first week of August, whenever that is.
you were saying you had options to get some extra money, Josh, for this? You said,
So we'll eliminate some software eventually. I'm sure there'll be one year where we're gonna have to overlap.
25.
So we pay for iCrime Fighter, which has slowly been increasing. It was about $1,600 when we first got it, now it's up to $3,600, and they're starting to charge us more if we want to keep adding on things that we can use it for. That's what we use for our digital management of photos, audio, stuff like that.
so when you get rid of that,
We can get rid of that, because this RMS system will be able to support that with an app on the phone where you take the photos and it uploads it for us.
This app, it'll allow the officers, if they're taking, let's say you're taking pictures of a crash, or a domestic, or whatever the call is, they're able to, with their work phone, upload those pictures, videos, audio, whatever, they can upload it right to the file. And with this cloud-based system, it's one file that we're using, not 3 different, files that are trying to work together. So it's gonna help us from a records management standpoint too, to eliminate some of those, not some of those, it's gonna eliminate a lot of duplication for us, to better manage the calls that are coming in, so.
that'd be a third.
Yeah, that'll cover about a third of the cost right there. And I'm sure that's already gonna go up in 2025 too. They've been doing that.
I think you figured that would covers quite a bit of the increase
Yes.
from last year. Because you're going from, what was it?
You said,
720 to 8 something, so that's gonna cover a lot of your costs in 26. You know,
cost in
hopefully it's gonna be
26 is 9,500.
I'm sorry.
Your cost in 26 is 9,500.
And we are already paying a user fee for our current users, about $500 per year, per user, so.
It's 3720 this year for CIS.
So our overall cost increase to start out about $2,000. So I'm in favor of switching this. I just wish they would've, the county didn't talk to us until 2 weeks ago. So some feedback from us, what we were looking for in software would've been nice, but, they have their, IT person from Pro Phoenix getting ahold of us to show us what it's gonna be able to do, and they had a lot of people, look it over from their administration, patrol,
We spent hours
dispatch.
and hours and hours with our different, the one demo was 8.5 hours long, with all of our departments. And we didn't pull in outside agencies because it's our software, it's our system. It's a system that we use for dispatch and for records management. But we did bring our investigations and patrol in to make sure that, you know, we're getting good feedback from them in regards to the patrol side of this application. And it's, our system now is so innovative, this is just not gonna be different. Everybody's really excited about it when they walk away from it. More, to the point where, we didn't know this kind of a service was out there. Because our existing vendor was telling us for years that what we had was the best. It's not, obviously.
Of course they are.
But they've been getting $40-some thousand a year for us, just for maintenance.
But Chief, you've had time to look at this, and this is gonna do fine.
I haven't actually seen the software itself, but what they're promising is that it's gonna do the same stuff that iCrime Fighter does for us for digital evidence. And then it's supposed to integrate better, like, right now, the CAD system, the dispatch system, doesn't talk to the records management system. That's where there's a lot of duplication, getting that data over into a different module. So overall, it's gonna make us more efficient.
And then with our crime reporting with the our state and federal crime reporting, that data analysis, or analyst that does that, there are times where she often has to go to all three case files, or all three data systems, and then go through the reports to make sure that she's got all the data right to do the crime reporting. Because that crime reporting is important for us from a standpoint, from a grant standpoint and funding standpoint. It's just, it's this kind of snowballed the beginning of this year and this winter, how much extra work we've been doing, or we've had to do with this software. And it all had to do with having, we now have people, we have department heads in each department, records, dispatch, emergency management, investigations, patrol, and everybody working together and looking at it and going, hey, wait a minute, we're doing the same thing. And then when it goes from here to here, they're having to check that. And now we're getting feedback from a county attorney who's very aggressive, and she's been great to work with, but she's like, I need this, this, and this, and I'm not getting this. Well, it got lost in that process. And that's our cases and Caston's cases. This is just gonna really streamline everything and just make it better. And the world's gonna be much better.
Okay. Any other questions?
We don't foresee any hardware needs, computer tech needs, that, none of that is needed.
It's all web-based.
Yeah.
Which is the other draw for us. Because there's been a lot of unexpected expenses with CIS over the years. But they had us because it takes a year to transfer this data over.
And you started this process when?
We haven't started the data transfer.
No, when your 8.5 hour your 8.5 hour trainings,
We've done
looking
this
at
for the
it.
last 2.5 months, 2 months.
It's almost been 4 months now that we've been working on it.
So it's when we can get everybody together and working on it.
One thing that would be nice to see is as we move forward, if we do agree to this, more emphasis on giving us some more heads up in time. Chief, you just mentioned it's been about 2 weeks. You've been doing this for 4 months, and we're 33% of your calls and needs. Let's talk a little more frequently about these types of things, because it's gonna affect all of us.
Well, what's nice is now, once this system's online, if you have any questions about what the police department's doing, or the calls are going on, or the types of calls are going on, all you gotta do is go to the web. You'll be able to look it right up.
Yep.
We can't do that now. We have no data. We don't have the to do it.
Yeah.
Frankly. So it's just gonna make everything much more transparent too. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Mel, thank you. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. On to F, committee report number 1, EDA TIF update for the Northwest subdivision.
month at our July EDA meeting, we did hear a presentation from a developer who's interested in a portion of land up in northwest Wisconsin owned by Mr. Schutte. And basically, the intent of that presentation was to present on the possibility of a tax increment financing proposal. And so, following the presentation, the EDA members were pretty receptive to this idea and did recommend moving forward with the possibility. So, in the future, there would be an option for the council to consider formally granting TIF to support this proposal. But right now, they're looking at a combination of townhomes and single-family residential on this entire parcel. There's still quite a lot that has to be done in order to make it happen, but just so everyone is aware, that could be coming in the future.
Which parcel is this more specifically?
The parcel number?
Rough location.
I don't know. Sure, you said Northwest Casson, I don't really know.
So it's between Highway 57 and the dump road, kind of north of, well, on the one side it's the dollar store, on the other side it's like kitty corner to
Wilkers.
Wilkers.
Okay.
So abutting the proposed 16th Street extension.
Yeah, it's just south of the new
Kind of that
16th
west
Street.
half of that parcel
Yeah.
between the two of those along the dump road, yep. And that's still leaving room for businesses between there and the dump and the dog. Yeah, it'd be primarily, so the county owns that piece that's north of the draw there.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be affected, and 16th Street wouldn't be affected, it'd mostly be south of the draw, on the sort of south side of that parcel.
Right, not the entire parcel under proposal right now.
Right.
Just a portion.
Just a portion of it.
Yeah.
And it's a pay-as-you-go TIF, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what we would consider.
Yep. So we'll have more information for you in
Yeah,
August.
more information.
But the EDA did review it, they felt like it kind of was the last piece of Casson's housing puzzle. It has that townhome option, which we don't really have that in town, so I think that was part of their justification for looking at it positively, so.
Okay. Thanks, Ian. Anybody got any questions for Ian on that? Anything else? Okay. On to, I apologize, I skipped the public forum. I'm gonna jump back to that, sorry, I was looking at the wrong page. So we'll go back, I got a couple cards here. Jerry, do you have something, Jerry Berg? Did you wanna come up and say anything? And Eric, you'll be next there.
Hey, Jerry Berg, 506 Fifth Avenue Northwest, Casson. I'd just like to say a few things before you vote on your resolution for fence. As I read it as a literal reading in your proposed resolution, the first main statement says you're granting a CUP for erection of a fence, period. Then underneath it says with conditions. The conditions basically don't really take effect for a whole year. So if you read that literally, at least the way I read it literally, I could put a fence up and you could make me move it or take it down in a year if I don't have agreements. You have given me or Eric in this case, permission to build a fence. And I don't think that's correct.
Okay.
Guess that's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jerry, appreciate it. Eric?
Thank you, Mayor and Council and City Administration for giving me the opportunity to speak during this public forum. I've had quite a few emails sent to you guys about some different issues that I've seen in the ordinances. I guess, I know this is not an opportunity to talk back and forth, but I would like to ask that you please write to me and follow up on any questions that I might ask, or any statements that I have, to give me some understanding of if you have an opinion or not. I would really appreciate that. The fence ordinance, the ordinance in town, 154.312, fences and walls. Under number 1, the very first thing that it says, is the way I interpret this, it says fences, hedges, and walls and other landscaping shall be located entirely on the property in which they serve. I interpret that as there's no exceptions for property line fences. I believe the property that they serve is the property of the guy building the fence or gal building the fence. I'm not sure how you guys interpret that. Another thing in the ordinance is that it says that an access agreement on adjacent property may be required to ensure the ability to maintain the fence. To date, what has happened there is every single property that I'm aware of has been required to have that. It's not that it may be required, it has been required. Just, the ordinance says it may be. The city then, as far as I can tell, provides that agreement after you apply for the fence, after you get your conditional use permit, is the first time anybody sees that agreement. And that is an easement agreement. It's right here, it's the access easement agreement. But like I said, this isn't available to anybody to see prior to even thinking about building a fence. This is not something that any of my neighbors have seen. What this access agreement does allow for is it allows for a fence on the property line. It says the parties desire to bind themselves and their heirs in a signs to the agreement to allow for construction and maintenance of a fence on the parties adjoining property line. I'm looking for some clarity from council if the city intends for property line fences or not. The ordinance to me reads that it doesn't, but this agreement that the city is not involved in, simply agreement between two neighbors, leaves the neighbors believing at least that they can, okay? And also at the zoning board meetings, they're generally told that they can. I guess I'd like some clarity to find out if everybody's fence that's on the property line
I'm happy to address that if you
is
like.
actually indeed in compliance. Yeah, because you got...
Do you want me to address that right now?
Yeah, please.
If there is an agreement by your neighbors, you can build a fence on the property line, on the boundary line, if you have that agreement. So folks who want to build the fence on the boundary line are the ones who apply for a conditional use permit to get the ability to do that. If you don't want to build on the boundary line, if you want to build 3 feet or further into your own property, you don't need a conditional use permit for the fence.
Okay, so basically, the ordinance should read that a property line fence is allowed. The way the ordinance reads, until you've seen this easement agreement, which isn't available to anybody till way later, anybody who pulled up the ordinance would be under the impression that the property line needs to be built entirely within the property that it serves. If the city does allow for that...
There is an additional ordinance that addresses, that's the next ordinance, I believe, that specifically addresses that 3-foot issue. You just have to keep reading in the ordinances.
I'm not talking about the 3-foot issue. I'm talking about the fact that this agreement, this easement agreement that the city provides to its citizens, actually has required its citizens to sign in order to condition the CUP.
Well, and it's been provided as a courtesy to you. Again, it's been explained to you that you can have your own form drawn up, you can have an attorney draw up whatever form you choose. This has been provided to you as a courtesy by the city to assist you. It's not the only form that can be used.
I understand that. I'm not talking about my case in particular. I'm talking about what has happened to 30 people so far.
No, we're here to talk about your case in particular.
This is just public comment. Okay. I'm just giving public comment on the fence ordinance. I didn't realize that there could be allowed any new discussion.
I apologize.
I thought public comment did not allow for any new discussion on my fence. I'm surprised Jerry had a chance to talk. When I read what it says in the fine lines, it says public discussion cannot be about something that already had a prior public discussion. We already had public discussion on my fence. I didn't realize I could provide new public discussion on my fence, so I'm not prepared to do that. I'm providing comment on the fence ordinance, so I'll get back to my notes, okay?
Yeah.
So, as I see it right now, what's happened in the past is the city has required this easement agreement to be signed by all the people to build fences so far to date. I'm not saying the city's going to require it any further. It sounds like they're not going to require this any further, according to what Ms. Leith has just confirmed.
This access agreement, this easement agreement has the city okay, 30 people have built on the property line, and in my opinion, are out of compliance. If the city allows for property line fences, they should sign this easement agreement as a partner to this agreement, because right now, two neighbors could agree to anything they want. They could do a 10-foot fence in this agreement. It doesn't mean it changes the ordinance. And right now, that's what we're being told. If two neighbors agree to something in here, it overrides the ordinance. Nowhere on here is there anywhere that recommends getting your own legal advice. This is very scary. This is an easement agreement that most people that signed it probably had no idea that they should have had an attorney advise them on that. This easement agreement was not reviewed by attorneys, and Ms. Leth has reviewed it for the city, but the people that signed this agreement generally have not had any legal advice on it whatsoever. They receive it from the city in the mail from Ian, and they probably assume that the city's looking out for their best interest. Because there's not a fee involved, they probably don't even realize it's an easement being filed. They might, but most people just sign things. They just do. They need legal advice if they're gonna sign an easement. That's my recommendation, that the city please put a disclaimer on this saying, this is not required, and also put a disclaimer on here to please seek your own legal advice before signing this easement agreement. This easement agreement's one-sided. Okay, all of the fence rights go to the individual who built the fence. Okay, to the point that if an individual built, say, a 3-foot chain link fence on the property line, now they have a 5-foot easement on the neighbor's property. It's actually a 5-foot easement that, it's actually not termed easement, it's called a, encroachment. There's a 5-foot encroachment that you have on your neighbor's property to maintain your fence. They certainly shouldn't build their own fence on that. For them to build their own fence, let's say it's a 3-foot chain link, and they want to put a privacy fence up, okay? Do you want to move forward a little bit, or are you going to explain something?
Yes, please, you're typically
Okay.
limited to 4 minutes,
All right, so, all of the fence rights are, I'll wrap up real quick, all the fence rights go to the builder of the fence and none to the grantor of the fence. Okay, the easement agreement, or any easement agreement or access agreement, like I said, should include a clause saying seek legal advice. And like I said, the grantor, the person that signed these so far to date, probably had no idea what they signed. That's really all I have to say. I just look for some clarity on a couple of those issues as far as, what's going on. I understand I'm not required to do an easement, so that's why I'm required to do an access agreement, so thanks a lot.
Thank you for your comments.
And that's it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you all for giving me a chance to give that opinion, and I understand the fence ordinance might be changed to fix some of those things, so I hope that you please take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, skipping back down where we were, committee reports, number 2. Actually in the packet under
A2E.
A2E.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Do we need to take action on the actual CUP for his fence?
Yeah, that was what was moved to number 2.
That's what's been moved to the committee report.
Oh, that's committee report?
Yeah, we moved...
Okay, I'm confused because things moved and I'm looking at the original agenda.
Yeah,
Sorry.
When we started, we moved 2E, that portion of it, to the committee report.
Understood.
For the action, okay? All right, let me get back to my spot here. Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now, Paul. All right, so comments, questions? Plan and zoning?
So it was brought to my attention, if you read through it, it says that if we allow this resolution as it is stated, he could put a fence up now, and he has a full year to get access agreement from his neighbors before he'd have to remove it. So I would prefer it wrote, cannot build. We can issue the CUP, but you would not be allowed to build until access agreements have been signed by all parties. To make sure that there's no question of, because you can read it one way or
Because it says by no later than July 24th, 2025, access agreement shall be notarized and recorded. So,
It doesn't read that way to me, but I don't
but I wanna
think
make,
that adding additional clarification, wouldn't hurt.
well, then there's no doubt.
Yeah, I guess you read it both ways.
You could, yeah, I agree, you could read it both ways, but I wanna make sure that there's cut and dry, there's no, you know, 'cause if, I'm afraid if you build a fence on a property line without your access agreement from your neighbors, you're you know, and if, especially if they did not pull a, what's the word, survey to prove where the line is, if they're on the neighbor's property installing a fence or maintaining the fence, the neighbors would be calling for trespassing.
Take out that beginning clause that says, by no later than July 25th, 2025, take that out, and just say, an access agreement shall be notarized and recorded before a fence can be placed closer than 3 feet to the property lines. With that little tweak. Did you get that, Ian?
Yeah, thank you.
That would make sense.
Yeah. The only reason the date was on there, planning and zoning was discussing it, and they just wanted to make sure that there was ample time giving them to get it done, not to, because a CUP, once issued, is only good for a year, and we wanted to make sure that there was ample time.
Oh.
And the 12-month provision is already part of the code anyways, so, I mean, it wasn't my intention to be ambiguous, it's just,
Yeah, so it was just kind of discussion, and we just want to clarify.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
So will that expiration date be included on the permit that he would receive?
Well, there's no, like, physical permit that he receives, it's the actual resolution itself, that's the permit.
And once you apply for a CUP, you got 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just thinking, when I did a building permit, I received a piece of paper and it had date on it when I had to do stuff. In this case, they don't actually receive a paper permit for the fences? Okay.
Just a copy of the
That's just my ignorance, that's all.
No, good question.
Does that satisfy with that change?
I believe so,
Okay.
yeah.
Anybody else got anything?
Duly noted access agreement, not an easement.
Correct.
Right.
Access agreement, not an easement.
Access agreement is what it's always
We're
been
doing
called
easements.
in our ordinance as access agreement.
Okay. Okay, Ryan, anything? No?
If we decide on this today, do we have to respond to all the emails?
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so is there anything else? Yeah, everything's been answered. So, all right, anything else?
No, that was
All right,
what I
so with
know.
that change, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP with the edits that we've discussed.
Okay, thanks, Paul, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Thanks, everybody, thanks, planning and zoning. On to old business, updated cannabis ordinance. This is for information, and then we're gonna set a public hearing for August, so, Tim?
Sure,
update?
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Including your package, you've got a guide from the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management, which is relatively thorough. It covers a lot of different topics. After our last meeting, I had a good meeting with the county, and we talked it over with the county health, and also Jim Elmquist up there, and some of the other cities were involved as well, and just trying to figure out kind of what Dodge County's plan is for how they want to handle this, and there was some really good feedback. Including that, they did provide, and this model ordinance, you can see that included as well as G1A. It has a lot of other items that, I hadn't originally thought of. The state's actually going to have 11 different categories for licenses. So it isn't just a retail, sort of when I envision it, more thinking about the retail aspect of it, not so much the growing aspect of it. So I think we wanted to encompass those components as well for our zoning purposes, to make sure that we're covering our bases, and I think that largely this ordinance does that. Still very, open to tweaks on that, or whatever is required. You can see there the red line kind of explains sort of what's included a little bit, and sort of highlights what are things that could be changed or whatnot. But overall, that's kind of where we're at, is just want to make sure that we had that available.
Okay. And then we're going to set a public hearing for August 28th.
That's correct, and we'll have a notification for the newspaper, that sort of thing.
Okay. Regarding that draft ordinance. So-
That's right.
All right, so we'll have all the notification for that, and we'll have that at the meeting on the 28th. Any questions on that for Tim?
Have we had anybody inquire about opening?
I have had a few phone calls about it, nothing specific, nothing to any extent. The state has been very slow to kind of will out their policies. I mean, I think right now they still technically don't have a director of that office. They have a acting director who's been the acting director for the last 6 months, and I'm not sure if they will have a director. That person's just going to be kind of tasked that way. But, so, I mean, and they're still kind of figuring things out. Supply chain issues is a big part of what they're doing. They did authorize people to start growing a little earlier because they want to be having Minnesota-based products instead of having imported from other states. But so they're still figuring things out. But I think we're going to just continue to work with Dodge County to make sure that all the cities in Dodge County are on the same page when it comes to these policies.
I only ask because it looks like that's the trigger for us to actually have to do, I mean, obviously having the ordinance in place is the first step to being good governance, but it looks like, based on the information that they provided, that someone inquiring about establishing a facility is what triggers us having to proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would want to have the ordinance in place, just so that, we don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel when we do have somebody ask, because I want to be able to provide them with good guidance on, like, for example, what areas of town are available for them if they do want to locate a facility. I know, talking with the county, they're thinking, and this is just me, not speaking for anyone in particular, but the basic feedback I got was they felt like it was likely that they would see some grow facilities in different parts of the county, but likely any kind of retail would probably be in one of the cities. The folks over in Dodge Center, it sounds like they're maybe less likely to pursue allowing any of those. The county is only required to allow one for every 12,500 people. So I'm not sure exactly how restrictive they'll be on the number that they'll want to allow. Obviously, inside the city limits, we can control that to a larger degree. But I think what I want to do is just make sure that we have this in place so that someone asks, they say, it's legal. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, the state's made the changes they've made. So we can say, hey, here's where you can put it, and that allows somebody to set up a business plan and make it easier for them. Because otherwise, they're going to be like, I don't know, and I want to be able to provide them good information.
No, I misread it to be that a city has to allow one per 1,200 or 12,000 residents. I didn't realize that was a county thing, so I misread the...
Yeah, it goes by population, so it's total population for one for every so many people. And in Dodge County, I think they have about 21,000 people, so they're looking at one or two locations would be kind of the max that they would be required to allow. Now, with that being said, so let's say Casson allowed 2, Dodge County wouldn't have to allow any more.
Okay.
If they chose not to. One other thing, just to note, is that, we've chosen not to pursue this, but municipal facilities are not counted against that cap. The state of Minnesota changed state law this summer so that muni facilities would not be charged, would not be against that cap. They will also not allow it to become a municipal stranglehold. So, I mean, even if we, for example, we have a municipal liquor store, we don't allow other liquor sales from other, establishments. On sale we do, but not off sale. You can't just say, okay, well, the city's going to build one, and we're going to make it the smallest, and we're going to restrict it. We can't stop someone else from building one. So, just to be clear about that.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have a couple of things.
Yep.
I'd just like to comment again that, when we do have a draft that we're going to officially review, that we try and keep it as similar to the tobacco one as possible, I think. Obviously, you just mentioned that there's other things in here that we'll have to consider, in terms of growing and whatnot. So that's that. And then secondly, do you have any idea of where Rochester is on their decision on cannabis?
Well, I mean, if you follow the Post Bulletin, they've had some articles on it recently, and it sounds like they're planning on being relatively restrictive as well.
Really? Okay.
So, I mean, I don't have any in particular ins to the folks who work over at City Hall there, but it sounds like between Olmsted County and the city of Rochester, they're they're planning on having it a little bit more restrictive than some people might have thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else? Okay, so public hearing on the 28th on that. Next up, old business number 2, Dodge Center Ambulance Taxing District information.
So included in your packet, you have a couple of items, a couple of PDFs as well as a spreadsheet. If you want to take a look at that in more detail, we can. Basically, it just talks about the establishment of a taxing district, which the council had a meeting with the folks from Dodge Center, I think back in January. So there'd be a couple different things that would be required. You'd have a establishment of the district, which would require all the participating partners to approve. You'd also have an agreement or a contract between the service provider and that taxing district. So that's included in your packet tonight. And then I've also got, as I said, that spreadsheet in there to show kind of what Mr. Abani, who has worked with the ambulance district in the past, and we're all very familiar with him, he'll be coming in August actually to present for our yearly updates. He's kind of got a draft of what he could see based on some of the projections financially, where the cost would be. So I guess what I'm looking for tonight is any feedback you have on that. I had a meeting relatively recently with the folks from Dodge Center and the other cities, that are participating, and I didn't get a lot of feedback at that time from the other cities, but as you can see here, based on the taxable net capacity, Casson is about just over 60% of the number. So that would be the expectation, I think, from the district, we would be paying about 60% of the cost. I think that my own perspective is that that would mean that Casson should have a good percentage of the voting authority there, because I think it's important for our taxpayers to be represented properly. Talking it over with Lee and I think there's some definitely things we can continue to work with them too. The intention isn't for Casson to be in control of it all of itself, but to make sure that, our taxpayers are being, like I said, properly represented. And I think that's something that can be worked out pretty well.
How is this gonna be affected? I know the state's looking at giving more money now for ambulance services. Does that lower our costs if they get more state funding and federal funding?
Well, I think it would. Obviously, I think that you're aware of the issues that all the ambulances, and, well, not all of them, but a lot of them in rural Minnesota especially, are facing with recruitment and funding challenges and things like that, especially on the capital side. I think the goal is obviously that Dodge Center would like to have some framework in place. That doesn't necessarily mean that the cost will be the same every year for the district. My expectation would be that it would vary depending on the way the funding would come in. So obviously, if the state comes in with a good amount of funding, then, you might have several years that you wouldn't have, the need for a substantial levy at all. I also frankly think that a capital-based levy is what I think is the way to proceed, at least initially. We know that there's these large capital items that create a real hardship for the ambulance service. New ambulances, 10 years ago, maybe it was $200,000, now you're looking at $500,000. It's the same thing for us with fire departments and stuff like that. We save for 10 years for a fire truck or more. And I think that if we could provide a baseline revenue to help with capital costs, I feel the operations of the ambulance need to be as much as possible served by the operations. They need to be able to treat it still kind of like a enterprise fund, like it's what's kind of it is. And not to say that, this board, once it's approved, if it's approved, they'd have the authority to do it. It'd be like the school board. I mean, it would have its own board. The council would likely appoint, the mayor would appoint, with the council's approval, a member. Based on their feedback, it has to be an elected member of the council. I asked about that, and they said it would have to be, I think, if there's some state statutory language that requires that. And then they would meet possibly 2 or 3 times a year to, set a budget and to pass a levy, which would be held in the calendar year, similar to what we do ours. So, I would expect it to be at least a couple meetings early in the spring, and then probably one in September to set a preliminary levy, and then one in December to set a final levy, in order for that to be able to be sent to the county. But I'm talking on behalf of the Dodge Center Ambulance Service. We've got a great representative right here, if he doesn't mind coming up and talking to it himself. If you have any questions, it's my understanding, I've talked about my understanding of it from that meeting and from the paperwork I got here, but if there are other questions, I'm sure AJ is very capable of answering them. By this time, I know he has, because he's gotten grilled enough.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, AJ Ganger, I'm the ambulance director. Thank you for talking about this more. But ditto, basically, you said it well, a summary of everything that happened. Yeah, like you said now, I don't think the capital planning is far off at all right now. And like you said, as things go on, depending on state funding and staffing, those are gonna be the biggest two determining factors of what is gonna be needed from all of the government entities.
Another question I have for you.
Yeah.
As the rumor out there, I don't know if it's true, but the state was talking because of all the issues of getting money, and they were looking at maybe changing district lines and changing to ambulances could go to other areas. Is that anything you've heard? Because that would have changed...
Right, I mean, for that to happen, it will take, they'll have to do it in a session. I mean, it is in law right now, where those lines are. So, there's been, from my understanding, I've only been in Minnesota for a few years, from my understanding, the fire chief side of it, the association, their side has been trying to tackle that for a very long time. And not this last session, but the one before that, they really tried to get rid of, they're called the PSA laws, the primary service area laws, which determine who serves where. And it's to help keep the, lowest bidder out kind of situation. It prevents, there's big ones, such as like AMR, trying to think of, there's some, REMSA, there's different ones who will come and throw the lowest bid they can just to get their foot in the door, but you're also going to get probably the least reputable service out of that. And so not always the case, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, it just depends. But it's to help prevent, that type of situation happening, and to continue the service. And so, yeah, who knows, the EMSRB who regulates that essentially is going away. It's becoming the Office of EMS, which was approved this last session. And so, now one person essentially holds a lot of power to do those changes, and so I don't know what that will entail. I mean, it will still have to go through Congress, but, so it's hard to say. We don't foresee it going anywhere in the next couple of years, but beyond that, because it'll take some time for them to figure it out. So I guess I haven't heard that rumor recently. I heard it a lot 2 sessions ago about that going away, but I have not heard it recently, so.
I think that heard, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just because you hear it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah. There'd be a lot of stuff that would have to go through for that to happen. So, there's a lot of ambulances, big ambulance services included, that are in favor of those lines.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, a lot of support behind it that they're gonna make upset.
Any other questions for AJ? So did you panic just a little bit when Mayo sent out that communication that was misunderstood?
Well,
I think you talked to him right before I did.
My first phone call was to Mr. Drucker, yes.
And I had a Zoom call with Mr. Drucker, and,
I'm misunderstanding it right now. Can you explain what's going on?
there was a communication sent out about...
I saw the email. I was gonna ask
whatever.
about it.
So I Zoomed with him and said, I took it as they were looking to expand their territory and something had changed, and he said, oh, I know why you're calling. I just talked to AJ, he was in a little bit of a panic about that. So, it was a good conversation, but I've had that question for years, why doesn't Mayo just take over? Well, one, they can't, you'd have to give up the territory.
Right.
Right? And then two, they're 140 people short of staff, so even if they wanted to, he said, even if we came and begged and you said, we're done, they would take it over, but they wouldn't want to because they don't have the staff to staff it. So, it was an interesting half-hour call, but...
Good. I'm glad you had a good conversation with him. I would expect nothing less, even if it was pure just interest to see what Mayo can do for you, I would expect that to happen.
Yeah, I just asked him, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah, so that...
Yeah, it was forwarded on to me, from someone in Manorville, and, I was like, oh, what's this? And I read it as more of an informational thing, but I called him, asked him about it. It was purely just an informational, or at least, so I'm told, was an informational item.
It was an odd email.
Yes.
It was odd, the way it was worded, I was like, what are they asking? So I'm gonna call and find out.
Yeah, they also had questions from the other side of Rochester that received that email. So, they made a little mistake and admit it, and, we'll address it better next time.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah.
You guys working on that. So we'll just continue to work going forward.
Well, I guess, is there any direction from council for me if I'm meeting with them? What do you think about the, the numbers that are provided for you tonight? Do you want us to pursue, kind of a capital-based, emphasis? Obviously, I think, the feedback from council in January was that we want to preserve this ambulance service. I think that's a good goal. You know, I think, you know, a lot of these things, you know, they haven't been 100% clarified yet, you know, how that would work. I think it's important, like I said, that the taxpayers are represented properly. I think as long as that's something we can do, I think that we can set up this framework. Some years, the levy might be higher, because they might say, hey, we're buying an ambulance, you know, 2 years from now, we gotta start, you know, charging more. Some years it might be less, where they say, hey, we got an extra, and I think you guys are scheduled to get over 100,000 from the state this year.
The estimate that's out there for us is 130-ish.
Sure. So, I mean, in years like that, you know, they might say, hey, you know, we don't need to levy as much, because, you know, similar to like the school formula, where, you know, some years, you know, you got more students, you got more money, you know, it just changes things a little bit. And I think that's, you know, it's something that's, every year it's gonna be a little different, but, I'm comfortable with the framework as it sits in terms of the potential structure. I just think that we need to make sure the voting is appropriately addressed.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest concern too, is just trying to figure out, as he mentioned, what your guys' viewpoint is. You know, trying to make 4 government entities agree on something is not very easy, and so, of all different sizes too. And, so trying to figure out your guys' direction on, what kind of, if the more voting power is what you're not gonna let go, or what that looks like, or how we can make that, 'cause, you know, we wanna serve Claremont equally, that we wanna serve Casson and Manorville and Dodge Center, and so how can we do that fairly? Obviously, you guys saw the agreements, I think they were in maybe last time's packet or something.
They're in tonight too.
Okay, that, you know, the first draft is just every city gets one vote kind of thing. And so, that's the way it was initially set up, but, obviously that was a starting point, and we're willing to try to figure something that works for everybody. We probably aren't gonna make everybody happy, but we're gonna do our best.
It's impossible to make everybody happy. I agree on the capital, but then also on the representation. It would be different if we had 4 communities of the same population, but maybe different property values, so you'd be paying more because you had higher property values, but you're serving 28,000 people, and there were 7,000 each community. Fine, 1 vote for each community, but not only do we have more property tax base, we've got the majority of the population in that group. So we should have more representation as far as the vote goes, because we could be funding over 60% of it, and...
Right.
You know, 38% trumps your 62% of ownership. That just doesn't...
Right.
I don't think that's gonna sit well with our citizens.
Obviously, and I can't remember if Tim iterated this or not, we don't want, you know, obviously Casson to be able to hold their own meeting and do their own things with nobody else having, you know, even if the other 3 cities don't agree on it.
Right.
You know, so that's the situation. How do we make that fair and equal? And so, yeah, that's...
No, and it could be weighted votes, it can be, you need 2 communities to agree on it. If somebody else went along with whatever, Casson shouldn't have carte blanche monopoly power to say, we wanna do what we wanna do, we do this on our coattails, not at all. But we should have a little more representation, or say if we're gonna supply 62% of the funding.
Yep.
I'm not sure if we get 62% of the calls.
It's closer to 50%.
Yeah, so, and no problem doing that, 'cause, I mean, we're all part of the area community, so we're willing to participate in that, but I think we just need to make sure we have representation for the citizens to taxpayers. So we have to keep working on that. Yeah.
Is tax capacity the right way to divvy it up? I mean, 'cause if you looked at like households versus the total, like Casson's less than 50% of the households, but our tax capacity is at over 60%, so...
I'm not sure we can do that with the county.
So, I think that's part of the issue, is I think, you know, if you're setting up a tax district, it goes by value. It doesn't go by per household. You know, that's one thing, like, I think that the townships are gonna do it a little different. So if you look at that spreadsheet there, from Dropbox, you can see, like, they've got a household split. And I think generally what the townships do is they do it by either parcel, and they just set up per price, like for our fire contracts, they say, hey, it's $50 a parcel, or they go by households. So they say, okay, we've got 200 houses, doesn't matter what your value is, you all want the ambulance. And so they're using a little different model. If we're using this service district, it would pretty much go by value. So, which, I mean, I'm, you know, once again, open to options. It's just a matter of, that was kind of the option that I think some of the cities saw as preferable, was by going by value.
Of course they saw it as preferable, because Casson takes more of the cost. Because our property values are higher, so we're already paying more taxes, so then we'll pay more taxes in this.
It says on here,
Service.
Casson's household's 2,700.
Yes, that's,
Total's 4,400, so we're still over.
Well,
no,
if
it's
you include the
5,900, because you
townships,
count
it's 59.
townships too.
Right.
So I did the thing in the spreadsheet, it's 45, we're 45% of the households, according to the spreadsheet.
I am,
Well, I was
you know,
just
if
going off
there
of
are
this.
council members who are interested in participating in the meetings that we have, you know, I've offered that before, and I'm certainly glad to have, I'm sure that more involvement's not a bad thing, so, because there are lots of different ways to cut this pie here, it's just a matter of, you know, how we do it. I don't want us to get bogged down tonight, because I don't think we're voting on it tonight, but I welcome your feedback, if you're interested. I don't know, AJ, if you've got another meeting scheduled yet?
We don't have one yet, no.
Okay.
Who
But
did
I'm
you
sure
share
that,
that with?
you know, I'm sure that
Yeah.
we'd be glad to have more people who are, you know, because I think, yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in more feedback, because looking at the numbers here, yeah, you know, maybe, you know, you go back to the joint powers then instead, I don't know.
Right, yeah, the reason, you know, kind of going back to the reason we're doing tax district is so City of Casson doesn't levy, and other cities, not just City of Casson, the cities don't have to levy for that dollar amount, right? It comes from the county level, and whereas the joint powers, you guys would be levying it yourself on your city budget and then paying the ambulance, kind of thing. So that's why we're going tax district versus joint powers board, kind of thing.
Tim, if you, email out when the meetings are.
Yeah, I usually do, and I certainly
Yeah.
will, the next time I see another one, we will, yeah.
I mean, my schedule's always fluctuating, but if I can
Right.
attend, I would.
Sounds good.
Anything else, Paul?
Just my comment is I'm not a fan of tax capacity, at least for this purpose.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, AJ, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yep, have a good night. So you'll let us know in the next meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing's gonna take place until we get more feedback,
No,
right?
I think the goal that I've been told at least is, to have it on the books by January. They'd like to be
Know
able
what
to set
the
up for
rules are.
2025.
Okay.
I'm not sure, that might slide again. Originally, they were hoping to get it this year, but I think they kind of missed the deadline. So I think that's, so, you know, we've got 6 months here, to keep kind of hashing it out, hopefully come to some sort of resolution.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. On to new business number one, garbage hauling city vendor discussion. Tim?
Sure. You know, I had asked for feedback from staff. You know, we had a large turnover this year. The city was being served by Hometown Haulers, and obviously that company was bought out. We've had some department heads who were somewhat dissatisfied with the performance of the current vendor. So they did go out and ask for some additional proposals. Those are included in your packet tonight. And you also see the current bill. So there's 3 in there. There's Waste Management, Aspen, and Harters. You know, basically, we're looking at, the council would like to see a change made, or if they're, you know, comfortable with staying with where we're at, that's where we're at tonight. I think there's a member from Harder's staff here, so if he'd like to come up and talk to us a little bit, he certainly can.
Right now, okay?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Ross with Harder's Disposal. So with that bid that I sent out, I don't know, did you guys just kind of reach out to Charlie? Is Charlie here?
Charlie's not here, no. Charlie's the one that reached out.
So he just reached out and then got, I guess, bids from, kind of not very formal bids. Our bids include taxes and fees, and one thing in the waste industry, there's a lot of waste companies that have contracts that I've seen Waste Management come in at different, like at low prices, and then they tend to raise people up if it's cities or residents. So just be careful with, like, if you're just seeing the price in front of you, that's not always the price that's going to be in a month, 2 months, 6 months. Our price would be guaranteed for 1 year, and we would just be willing to do a 1-year service agreement with you guys. But I would be careful with choosing whoever you decide to choose before seeing a service agreement. We're a family-owned garbage company. We're really the only small guy left. I don't know if you guys have any questions at all.
I'm good. Anybody else got any questions for him? Paul, anything? Dan? Tim?
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think we're planning on taking action tonight, but I just want to get this in your hands so you can take a look at it and review that. It's a good point from the representative there, you know, making sure that we have all of our our i's dotted and our t's crossed before we make a change.
Does fees and taxes add up?
Right.
Well, and terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I've seen like City of Yoda did the same thing with, all their residents. They have a city-wide contract, and Waste Management bills everybody individually, and people's bills aren't the same. So they say one thing and then, so.
Just to be clear, we're not talking about citywide
Yeah.
haul, we're talking about just the city. So I know we've had folks, and they'll watch the meeting tonight, I wanna be very clear.
This is just city service
Just for
for the
yeah,
city.
just
Okay.
for-
Hall, Public
Yeah.
Works, the
City
liquor
garbage.
store.
Library.
Those kind of things, it's not for individual residents here
Right, city
whatsoever.
accounts.
It's the city accounts. So
Yeah.
I just wanna be very clear about that.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, that saved a couple phone calls.
Yeah, about 9 different locations, but,
Okay, thanks for
could I,
coming.
could I see like the current pricing that you guys have? Is that something that's public or no?
Yeah, I mean, that's not...
The packet's online.
The packets is online?
Yeah, the
Okay.
packet's online, so if you'd like to
There's
check
a
it out,
copy of
you're
it here.
welcome to.
Oh, there's a copy? Okay, thanks.
That's the
Current.
I'm looking at this right now, and it looks like we're not getting charged for fire department at the moment, so that's a potential difference in the quotes.
Sure, yeah, I mean, they weren't getting charged because we weren't getting garbage hauling out there because
And
we built building.
our new quote has a 4-yard dumpster for the fire hall, which wouldn't be comparable to our current price.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thanks for coming, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other discussion or comments on that?
If you have feedback for me, please let me know. Read through them, let me know what you think, and I'll read through them myself again, just try to make
Maybe-
sure that we don't miss
yeah.
anything in our area.
Ask for the service contracts and that kind of thing.
And if Harders could put the total on the bottom, so you don't have to tally.
Well, maybe let Ross know before he leaves here.
Because,
Ross,
you know-
I'd love it, I think the council member would like to see the total at the bottom if
Because when you're
possible.
looking to it,
Yeah.
you list each individual site, so do the others, but then there's not a total price.
Yeah.
So then you have to,
Yeah, I did add, I can resend it. Are you guys gonna send in like a more formal bid, like
No,
an
I'll talk over
RFP?
with Charlie, and he'll be in touch with you early, probably next week.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can hold on to that. I just added it up on my.
Oh, okay. All right,
Okay.
thank you, appreciate it, have a good night.
Dan, what is that number?
1671.71. But that included, did it include fire?
That one includes
Fire hall,
fire
yeah.
hall, yeah. So Tim, I guess, are you guys gonna kinda review it and come back with a recommendation then?
Yeah, I think
Based
so.
upon, okay. Are you also gonna consider whether or not we wanna do 1 year or maybe longer contracts, if that's possible?
No, in the past, we've typically done month-to-month or one-year contracts with Waste Management, and so, if we'd like to look at a longer-term contract, that's up to the council. Whatever you'd want us to pursue, we can certainly do that. We've wanted to have that flexibility, and Hometown Horrors was a very good partner for us. They always helped out with the festival in the park, and we really appreciate that. That's a big one, and they were very good to work with all of our staff when we had our storms in the past, when we had cleanup and things like that. So, obviously, that's something we have to keep in mind, too.
Okay. All right, we'll get feedback from Charlie and have you guys talk. All right, thank you, everybody, appreciate that. H2, Dan, you moved from the consent agenda to the Buck Sewer Forgiveness.
Yeah, so I was over in the neighborhood of Doug Bucks, and he had stopped over and talked to me. And he showed me his bill, and he said, last year his highest month was 10,000 for his water. He said they put a new meter in this year, and he didn't notice any difference, but then all of a sudden he got a 22,000 gallon bill. So he's been watching his meters since, and he said it seems normal. So he didn't know if there was an issue with the meter, but I did talk to Charlie and the city hall, and they did go out there and look at it, and everything looks like it's reading. He just wanted people to know, when they get a new meter, to watch it, just in case there was something, but Charlie said he's never seen one ever be wrong, but they are mechanical. I think things can happen.
It's an odd coincidence that right after the
Right,
meter was installed.
but he said he didn't think anything was left on, and he's not saying, but he's still asking for the sewer forgiveness. He just wanted it noted, and, he was...
Sure.
And if it happened again, then could we look at it and maybe forego his one-time sewer forgiveness, if something broke down the road? If he got another big high reading, and...
Sure.
That was all he just... And I said, well, I can sure bring it to council.
Yep.
So I just wanted to bring it off and know what he had wanted to
But they said they already paid the bill and they were just waiting for this approval, but...
Sure. Okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, it fits within our guidelines of the, they'll keep an eye on the meter, and if there's something wrong with it, we replace it, so.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything clearly wrong with the meter, obviously, it'll fall into a different category other than this.
Yeah, and he just was
Based
curious.
on, the feedback I received, it's a brand-new meter, and it is reading right now.
Yeah.
They didn't notice any issues when it was installed either, and obviously, Doug's got a little connection with the water department, so he certainly got the pros checking it for him.
Yep.
So we felt like this was the best way to provide that sewer forgiveness for him at this time.
Yeah, and he just didn't, he was just kinda a little surprised to see that, and he said he hadn't watered yet this year, 'cause, last year when it was 10,000, he goes, I was watering, I understand, he goes, that's my deal, he goes, this year, we haven't needed to, so he was just, he was just hoping.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we created this sort of formal process, so that if there's an issue in the future, we'll have it documented, and we know we can go back and say, okay, is there something wrong with that meter? Typically, we found the meters are very good, but there's always possible that something could have a mechanical error, like you said.
Yeah, he just didn't wanna, 2 months from now, all of a sudden it just spikes again, and so he was just curious.
Okay. I just thinking about this, our policy is a one-time forgiveness on the sewer charge, right?
That's right.
Does that have like an expiration, like, let's say somebody had an issue, and then 10 years later they have another issue, are we gonna not allow them to apply for forgiveness?
That's always gonna be up to the council.
Okay, so it's not, we don't have it formally set, so...
Well, I mean, formally it's set so that it's a one-time sewer forgiveness, but that doesn't mean council can't change their mind in 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking,
Sure.
like, 10 years apart on two different
I
issues,
mean, our goal is not to try and,
Yeah,
our
yeah.
goal is to make sure that things get fixed so we're not wasting those resources.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not to penalize, I mean, really, we want people to shut them, to be careful and to shut things off. That's what it's all about. It's not about trying to penalize people for it. So we're glad to work with people when they come in, they talk to us about things. So certainly if somebody had an issue, 5 years down the line, we're gonna take a look at it again and see if it makes sense to forgive it again.
Okay, good, that's
I think
what
the
I was hoping
intent
for.
was, your water softener's broke, you had a big water bill, we'll forgive the sewer part of it this time. Then they didn't fix the water softener, come back next month,
Right.
I had it again, I needed it, well,
No.
you've had your one
Yep.
shot, you need to fix, that's what
Right,
the intent.
but then say 3 years down, maybe they had a
different
had
issue.
a leak for one day and they got it fixed,
Right.
so...
Then that could just be isolated incident, the council could take
Okay,
action.
that's what I was hoping. Thank you.
Good question, thank you. All right, so then we do need to take action on that too, since it wasn't part of the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the sewer forgiveness for this case.
Make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Administrator's report?
Okay, let's see here. Got a couple items in there. Obviously, updates from the folks at CMPS. I forwarded out an invitation from them for the annual meeting, so if you're interested in that at all, they have a good speaker this year. I'm gonna be over in the Mankato area where they'll be meeting over there. I've been to a few of their annual meetings, and they're generally pretty good. They've got a lot of good information. Some information on some new laws coming out. So this new housing program, Ian, myself, city engineer, and Brad are working to try and get a proposal together to apply for some funding to help with the development of the Southwest land. We think that it might be a good spot where we can kind of get some extra funding to kind of close some of those donut holes that we have in the project. Budget process is underway. Department heads are getting their budgets, and they'll be working on those over the next couple of weeks. We'll start having our meetings in early August with them to go through things and have a kind of a preliminary budget for you at the end of August, that meeting on the 28th. I mentioned before, Mr. Ubani's planning on being here, and that'll be an excellent opportunity for us to kind of look at some of the big projects next year. For example, the water tower project, seeing what that's going to kind of do to the water fund and how we'll be able to tweak our rates in the fall. So you can expect that. Next year, we know we have a couple of large projects. We don't have as many bigger capital items for purchase next year. So in the past couple of years, we've had some really large purchases, fire trucks, city equipment. Right now, it's trending towards a little bit less on that, and a little bit more on the actual debt service amounts. So, anywho, just wanted to highlight that. Talked about cannabis already. Let's see here. I talked about the taxing district. And then the Southeastern Minnesota TMO participated in the meeting last week. They've asked a certain number of people in the area to consider participating on the steering committee for that. It's a lot to do with, some of the changes we had when the busing from Mayo was eliminated. I'm not sure where it'll go, but they've got a large amount of money from the state to help fund that study, so it's possible I may be part of that group. couple other items that I have included in your package tonight, just for highlighting. MISO has been approved by FERC for a curved demand slope for their capacity. You know, in the past, it's kind of been all or nothing, so you get these years where capacity is worth nothing on the electric market, and years where the capacity is worth a ton. So what they're gonna do now is they're gonna actually have a curved demand slope, which, the nice thing to that, the benefit is that those providers of capacity, those firm power plants basically, are incentivized to keep their plant open a little longer because they can cash flow that capacity requirement a little bit more. It does mean that instead of being worth nothing, the capacity would be a little bit more expensive. Based on, if they would have used the curve slope this year, it probably would have about tripled our cost. However, it still would have been less than it was back in 2022. As you recall, we had a big spike that year in our costs, and so frankly, this is probably a little bit more accurate way of managing the supply chain, the supply versus demand for capacity.
I assume this means that, getting a deal on pre-negotiating with people that we've done before is gonna be a little harder?
Potentially. It depends on what they think the curve slope will be at, you know, because I mean, for our partners in Compass, for example, like, what they like is when we work with them is they know what they're gonna get. You know, and whether that's $2 a megawatt or $4 or $5 a megawatt, it allows them to put that in their budget.
Right, but the curve slope is gonna take some of their risk out.
Well, the other thing it's gonna do is you're gonna see their spike in summer much more. So, for example, the capacity is much shorter in summer than it is fall, winter, because most of the demand in MISO is summer peakers, which is ACs, basically. Most of it is there, especially if you go into the south tier, like Arkansas, which is part of the south tier of MISO.
Right.
So anyway, I don't wanna drag anything out, but yeah, it's an interesting change, and it's gonna just be interesting to see how it goes, and who's willing to work with us and who isn't. So, I do have in there, this is a grant amendment. The folks, from SEMCRA requested that we extend that grant one more year, and I did have a lot of questions for them on why things weren't being done. But in the end, I did sign off on doing that one more year. This will be the last year of our MIF money that goes to SEMCRA for those housing projects. I'm not planning on extending it again, and they aren't planning meeting to extend it again, so they're gonna utilize those funds up, and I think that is all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Tim. On to the engineer's report. Brandon?
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one item tonight, in your council packet is a professional service agreement, for the South Water Tower and Booster Station. That is a feasibility report that was approved at council at the last council meeting. So we're just moving forward into final design. I think we even have some marks here at City Hall, kind of getting going on the survey, because I know we're in a short timeline, so looking to get that agreement together to start doing some heavy lifting here, because this will be for design, bid, and construction phase engineering, so from the start of the surveying all the way through final project closeout is included in the scope of services. Just a quick high-level memory, a reminder, I guess, we are looking at putting a booster station likely here at City Hall, kind of behind City Hall, to boost up south of Highway 14 as we grow and develop. We don't have pressure down there. With the Egan project, kind of spurred that, and they've informally agreed to the easement that we discussed. Working with the city attorney, we're going to have that easement potentially at the next meeting to keep that ball rolling. We'll put a tower up that'll be a higher elevation south of town to serve our future growth. We'll talk about the sizing of that as we kind of go into final design. So we have project management meetings included, topographic survey, preliminary and final design, which includes some geotechnical engineering that'll be a sub-consultant to us to look at the soil underneath the tower so it can hold a large amount of water. And then project bidding, construction administration, and then through construction observation and close out of the project. We'll include, pay applications like you approved tonight on other projects. So should include everything that we're expecting. And I'll pause there and see if you have any questions. I will add maybe at the end here, terms of service are included in the city modified terms from 2015, so it's included in there. So we perpetuated those terms in our engineering contract. So I'll pause there and see if you have any questions.
Questions for Brandon? Was that, who was surveying tonight? There was somebody on the property line when I was here at 5:30 or whatever. Locator was here, yeah, okay.
Probably called in one call already, so.
Okay, all right.
It was a locator up there.
Okay, I was like, what the heck's he doing? Okay, no other questions for Brandon? Okay, thanks for bringing this back to us, Brandon. Entertain a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Paul, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brandon, appreciate it. We are gonna go to closed sessions to discuss labor negotiations, personnel, and then a closed session for potential land transaction. So we'll close the meeting. Those will both be recorded. then we'll close those sessions and reopen the general meeting to come back for correspondence and adjourn. So we will close the meeting to the public. If you'd like to come back in, if you want to wait outside or somewhere else in City Hall, we can come get you when we're done. Other than that, if you decide to take off for the night, have a great night, and thanks for coming. But we are going to close the regular meeting and open the closed sessions in just a moment. So, thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.